So hi everyone, my name is Chris, and I'm very happy to have you all with us here today. We have quite a big turnout, which is wonderful. So for this webinar, we are going through the Accounts Receivable module. We're going through the functionality that we have built into Rover. There are a lot of people on the call, and there are a lot of different levels of expertise with Rover, I'm sure. We have some customers who are coming to the product, so this may be new for them. And I'm sure there are some of you out there who've been using this for some time already. So with that being said, I really want to go through the process kind of from start to finish and cover some of the newer functionality that we have too, which you may have seen in some of the release notes. So the goal, the game plan is to go through how to create an AR account, how we can bring forward balances from an existing system, and then talk about managing the account itself in terms of allocating payments, unallocating payments, and generating statements and all that good stuff. So without further ado, our first point will be how to create an AR account. So to do this, we're actually going to go into the revenue management area and select company and travel agent cards. So I have created a card already for Universal Studios. And within this company card, there is no AR number currently created. And I can see that in the area in the middle on the right-hand side. To create an account, as long as I have the permission to do so, it's very easy. I just create account by selecting the button. The number will be generated automatically. That's a setting that you can switch on or switch off. So if for your business, it would make more sense that you have a particular format and a particular code that you use, very easy to do so. And I'm going to select 30 days for payment. And there we have it. You can see there's a generated AR account now for Universal Studios Florida. Now we can actually look at all of our AR accounts that we have created thus far. And to get to our AR accounts, we go to the Financials menu. Bear with me one moment. And Accounts Receivables. So in this screen, we can see for our property, we're currently using the James Hotel, that there are 24 open guest bills that we're expecting payment for, and a balance of about $68,000, which is unpaid. Now on the screen, you can see that there's aging days of the account, the open balance for each individual account. I can search along the top. For this particular example, I'm going to put in Universal. And we have it now in our list because we've created that account number. So here we are in Accounts Receivable. On the left-hand side of our screen, you can see that we've divided this into 4 separate sections. So we have a balance tab, we have a paid bills tab, unallocated tab, and an allocated tab. So first, I'm going to actually do a manual balance forward for this account. This is something we would do if we were cutting your system over from a previous system and you already had active accounts and you wanted to work with those in Rover. It's very simple to do. I would click on Manual Balance. I can put in a guest name. I can copy over an invoice number from the original system. And the really nice feature is I can actually put in the original checkout date for this particular guest, so the aging will be accurate. And now we can see on this particular account that we have the invoice and we have a departure date. Obviously, there's no arrival date because this particular guest didn't check in Rover originally. If I were making a payment against this account, on the left-hand side, you'll see I have the option to add payment. And in doing so, I can choose the payment method, which this company is using for this particular invoice. So I'm going to go ahead and select check payment. It's defaulting to the open amount, the open balance for this particular account. I can include a reference number, so this might be a check number. If the amount is more, if they're paying you more than the open balance, that's also okay. We can go ahead and change that here. And I can go ahead and make payment. Notice that there is a button, there is an option here to allocate payment after posting. If I select that and make payment, it's going to take me right to my balance screen once again. On the left-hand side, I have an unallocated payment. That just basically means that the payment has been applied to the account, but we haven't specified that it actually belongs with Christine just yet. So in the balance screen, you'll see on the bottom that I have this check payment there. I have an available amount of money that I can assign, and an allocated amount. So by selecting Christine, you see that $299 from this $400 has already been allocated for her. If I click on Pay Selected, then her invoice will move to paid bills. However, it is good to note that if I, for some reason, need to do partial allocations, this is also an option. So if I update the amount here, you can see the invoice amount is 100, the remaining balance moves to 199. And again, on the bottom, I can see my available amount here and the allocated amount there too. So for this account, I'm just going to settle it at $299, Pay Selected. Now, Christine's bill has moved, her invoice has moved from balance to paid bills, and I have an unallocated amount of $101. Very simple. So I have an account which has a little bit more information in there that we can play around with. So maybe for some of you who've been using the system already, this might be more useful information. So again, with regards to payment, if I add a payment to an account, this time I'm going to do a cash payment of $1,000. I'm not going to allocate the payment after posting, I'm just going to apply it. And it drops into my unallocated tab. If I had made a mistake, and this was perhaps the wrong account, or it shouldn't have been that amount, I can actually just easily click on the refund button and select refund. I can put in a reference if necessary and refund that amount. All of these transactions are recorded in the journal, so you'll see it there. It's just no longer in this account, as we don't want it there. So perhaps that was meant to be a check payment. So let's go ahead and apply that as such. And click on Make Payment. So once again, that payment is made available for allocation under the Unallocated tab. I can click on the Allocate button on the right-hand side, and it'll bring me to the Balance tab much in the same way and say, which accounts are you associating this payment with? Which accounts are you allocating this payment for? So we have $1,000 available and 931 allocated. So if I say that I want Bugs Bunny allocated, notice it's changing that amount to just $591.27, which is the total balance due for only Bugs Bunny. I can also include Joel Smith. It's assuming that I'm using the total amount, but I can change that if necessary. And I can click on Pay Selected. Those two will move to the Paid Bills section, and Zoe Deschanel will be left as an unpaid balance, and I have an unallocated amount of $238.50 left over. If I had made a mistake, I make a lot of mistakes, it seems, and I had to do something about that. If I go into my paid bills area, the chevron on the right-hand side actually expands the invoice, so I can see the details of what's been happening on that particular room. Notice the check payment has been applied against this invoice. A real quick and easy way to unallocate that is just to select the red X. It's going to ask me to verify that this is all correct, and I can click on Unallocate. And there we only have Joel Smith left in the paid, and Bugs Bunny is back on our balance sheet. And obviously the unallocated payment has increased too. So the running tally at the bottom of the sheet is very useful to keep track of how much you have left. I can also unallocate payments from the Balance tab. But most importantly, from within the Balance tab, I have the option of actually editing the invoice before making payments. So this is something that is relatively new. Some of you may not have seen this before within the AR module, but from within here, I have the option of actually editing transactions. So room charge at $189. If I click on the pencil to the right of this, you'll see that it can take me in and let me actually change that amount. I also have the option of transferring this entire invoice to a different account. If, for example, this wasn't meant to be under City of Dallas, maybe it was meant to be under Universal Studios Florida, I can move that invoice out entirely. And then lastly, I can also go ahead and post a charge here. So just like within the front end of the system, all of these transactions appear on the journal. In this particular case, everything we're doing will reflect in the AR balance or the AR ledger. So if I go ahead and post room charge for $25, it will appear there. With regards to statements, when it comes to generating statements for your clients, the statement button on the top right-hand side will generate a statement based on whatever criteria you have defined on this screen. So if I have a lot of accounts and I want to specify just accounts during a specific date range, I can do that by selecting the From To. The statement itself can be printed or emailed. And there have been some modifications to the statement which have made it a little bit easier on the eye than the original version and a little clearer for everyone to understand. In our most recent release, we also introduced new functionality regarding the transfer of negative balances to AR where the total balance of an account is negative on the guest bill. So from now, from our latest release, Rover will no longer display the direct bill payment option until the negative balance is offset by the user manually. So I have some examples to show you what that means, just to clarify for everyone. So we have two guests who rather conveniently have the last name example, and they're both actually booked through Google. And Google has an account with us, they have credit with us, and our standard setup is that we would direct bill room and tax to them. So Mary Sue, if I go into her bill and charges, on her second window, which is the room and tax window, her balance is $181.66. So this is not a negative balance, which means that it's a charge, which means that Google has to pay for it. If I select payment, the default payment method is direct bill. Now, if I go back and look at our other Mr. example, Tommy Joe, you can see already from this screen that there is a negative balance. There's actually a credit on this account. This just means that we actually owe Tommy Joe some money. So the overall guest balance is negative. If I now attempt to make a payment of direct bill on this account, it will not work. So it looks like someone has done a room adjustment here, but they've actually adjusted it by $1 too much, which has left the account at -1. So if I select pay, the payment type does not include direct bill. This has been done to keep the system a lot cleaner, and it allows finance to make sure that they're taking care of corrections on the front end before it actually gets to the accounts receivable area. So with that being said, that's a quick and dirty overview of accounts receivable. I am going to open up the line so that we can start accepting your questions. I'm going to put everyone on mute, and if you wouldn't mind just using the chat box, Jessica, thank you, using the chat box for questions. I think that'll be a lot better on all of our ears. So let's take a look at Jessica's question. Jessica's asked, do statements show the aging of the account? On the example you showed, it did not. So let's take a look at that example. I'm just going to move this window out of the way. City of Dallas. And I hope you can all see this on the screen. I know it's already small on mine, so through a share window, it might be more difficult to see. This statement shows the date of the transactions. It does not have an actual number included for how many days old that transaction is from today. Part of the reason being, I suppose, when we send a statement, it might take some time for that statement to get to the person, so that wouldn't be an accurate reflection of what it is from that particular day. But it doesn't actually include the aging as of printing of the statement. If anybody else has any questions, please do add it into the chat box for us. Thank you, viewer 20. How do I apply a credit from an existing AR account to an upcoming group stay? So if you have an account that has a credit on there and you want to use that as a deposit against an upcoming group stay, my recommendation would be for you to actually refund the amount in Rover within AR and then apply that as a separate payment on the group account. That would be the cleanest way of doing it, to keep the two ledgers separate. The deposit ledger for your groups coming in is really more of a liability because it's money that is not yet, actualized. So we should try and keep them separate. I would just zero it out in accounts receivable and then post it as a deposit against the group. The next, I hope that answers the question. Let me know if not. The next question is how to clear an open account with a negative balance for the same guests. In other words, I have the same guests in my AR. One bill is a certain amount, the other bill is negative. So the bill in your AR account, thank you for responding. The bill in your AR account is, oh, I see. So that's a good question because of the new functionality whereby we can't put a credit forward into accounts receivable. If it's a negative amount in the guest bill, that needs to be cleared out in the guest bill, and then that could be basically applied as a credit onto the account itself. Now, depending upon the payment method, it could be done as a credit card or cash payment onto accounts receivable. If it's a credit card transaction that you did on the guest bill, then it might be a good idea for you to have a transaction code built where you can offset. So you can close out the account by posting it into the guest bill, and then you can post that same transaction code, that charge code, in accounts receivable as a credit, and then that way it'll offset within your ledger, within your journal, but you'll see that credit now in accounts receivable. I hope that makes some sense. Next question is, does the payment reference number show on any reporting? Unfortunately, at this point, it does not, but that is something that we're aware of, and we are hoping to add to one of our next enhancements. I noticed there is no wire payment option. Can that be added? Absolutely. You have the flexibility to add any payment options that you would like. If you have permissions to do so, it's under the Finances tab under Configuration. And then if you select Payments, you would just simply select Add New. And I'll quickly show you where that is. Under Financials, I'm going to move my chat window out of the way. Methods, Add New, and then you can put in any details here that you would like. You would also need to create a charge code that corresponds with the payment method too. So viewer 14, you said both amounts are in the AR account. If they're in the same AR account, I see what you're saying. So if they're in the same AR account, then I would kind of do the same thing, but within AR. So what we can do, and I'm going to go back into the last account we were looking at, what we could potentially do. So I have Zoe here, and let me just, let me get Joel back there just to make it a little bit easier. So I have these two accounts here, and let's say that this was actually meant to kind of offset each other. Probably the easiest way of doing it would be going into the first of the invoices and then doing some kind of adjustment here, and that would reflect in your journal, so it would be shown as an adjustment, but then offset that by going into the second invoice and posting it as either a payment or as a charge, whatever would make most sense based on that. But just kind of equal the two out. Take away here, add here, and then it should balance out. If you edit a folio in AR, will that be visible universally? i.e., if you search via guest name, will that adjusted folio be visible or will it only be visible in AR? That's a great question. It will only be visible in AR. So if I go ahead and make an adjustment over here to the account that I'm in, if I search for that folio from within the regular dashboard module, it will not reflect the change that's been made. Hopefully that helps. If you do a change here, it'll reflect here. It wouldn't be available to view from within the folio. And the rule of thumb there is it's mostly the account contacts that would ask those kind of questions. So just make sure that they're reaching out to finance or accounts receivable directly to verify that adjustments have been made. Because if they call the front desk at 9 p.m. to check, then unless front desk has access to accounts receivable, they wouldn't be able to see that kind of information.
But yeah, great questions, everyone. We're just about wrapping up on time. I just want to remind everyone, as Chris did, there's definitely the support portal to submit any tickets, bugs, or issues that you're having. But we really appreciate everyone's questions during the session. There's been some really good instant feedback that Chris has been able to provide. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Chris, for your time today. That does wrap up today's webinar. Definitely keep your eyes peeled for future invites, and we'll be in touch regarding future webinar sessions y'all can join. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening, morning, night, and we'll be in touch. Bye.